Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely reframe the mainstream narrative around Web3, artificial intelligence, and digital ownership. Because look, right now, your digital legacy is under a massive, unprecedented threat. But the solution to protecting it isn't at all what you might think. If you've been paying attention to the news, you'd probably assume the entire decentralized space is just one giant, chaotic casino. But we're going to look right past that noisy surface level and uncover the actual mathematical architecture being built under the hood to protect your digital legacy and your sovereign rights as a creator.
You've probably seen this quote floating around from a prominent billionaire. When asked recently about cryptocurrency, he completely dismissed the entire ecosystem, basically saying it facilitates nothing except criminals moving money, it's volatile as hell, and it's just a means of speculating dutifully. And honestly, if you only read mainstream headlines, you'd probably agree with him. It perfectly captures that mainstream dismissal of Web3 as just a volatile haven for criminals and gamblers, a disposable lottery ticket where people are just hoping for a quick payout. But that perspective completely misses the actual underlying technology being built right in front of us.
Because if you look beneath that surface-level casino, while everyone else is distracted by volatile token pumping and daily price crashes, a highly deterministic architecture, which experts are calling the vineyard, is quietly being built. Think about how a real vineyard operates. It takes immense time, meticulous structure, and really deep roots to grow and yield results. Well, this digital vineyard is a highly structured architecture of Web3 that acts as an absolutely essential protective shield for human digital sovereignty. It's not about quick bets. It's about planting seeds for compounding, long-term infrastructural value that actually protects everyday people.
All right, Section 1, the AI extraction threat.
To understand why this vineyard is so absolutely essential right now, we first have to look under the hood of artificial intelligence at the massive threat of corporate data extraction. The crucial point here, and this is wild, is that a staggering 80 to 90% of modern AI compute cycles are actually just hardware-level approximations. When massive language models are doing their heavy lifting, they aren't handing you an exact, traceable mathematical truth. They're fundamentally just guessing the nearest answer that happens to be hardwired into the silicon. They act like a probabilistic gambler, just rolling the dice to see what word comes next. And that guessing game is incredibly dangerous for creators, because it completely erases the origin of the information.
And this brings us to a real danger that experts call the wood chipper effect. When non-deterministic hardware just probabilistically guesses the math, it permanently destroys the exact path and provenance of your original data. Imagine tossing apples, bananas, and strawberries into a giant industrial blender. You can never perfectly reverse engineer that smoothie back into the original fruits, right? That's exactly what's happening to your data. The machine completely loses the ability to honor or even identify the original human creators whose exhausting, brilliant labor trained it in the first place. All that human sweat and effort is just shredded into an irreversible AI smoothie.
And because the machine is blindly guessing and obviously cannot hold any legal liability itself, humans are being turned into what's called a moral crumple zone. Just like the front of a car is designed to crush on impact to save the main cabin, everyday developers and users are placed in the loop to absorb the brutal legal and ethical impact when the AI inevitably hallucinates or steals copyrighted work. In legal terms, this creates an agentic tort, which basically means that when the AI messes up, the multi-billion-dollar corporation hides securely behind the machine, and you, the everyday human, get hit with the liability for the machine's failures.
So let's move on to Section 2, Web3 as the protective shield.
How do we actually defend ourselves against this? Well, historically, creators relied on the traditional patent system to protect their work. But come on, that system is fundamentally broken. Just look at Zaxcom. They're an independent creator team who won an actual Emmy for their incredible digital wireless microphone technology. Massive corporate giants infringed on their work, and instead of a fair fight, the giants used aggressive patent thickets and endless bureaucratic paperwork to just drown them. It resulted in 14 grueling years of litigation. Let that sink in for a second. 14 years of exhausting court battles that financially ruined the founders with massive legal fees. It's a tragic system where the biggest budget literally always beats the best invention.
Web3 flips this extractive dynamic completely on its head. It shifts us away from what's known as the royalist cloud. See, right now, you're likely just a digital tenant in this cloud. You don't own your tools, you're just renting them quietly from a centralized tech monarch who can change the rules or the prices at any time. Web3 moves us towards sovereign compute. This is where you secure your own local hardware execution and pilot your own unalterable chain of title. You aren't asking an invisible tech monarch for permission to exist or create. You command the machine directly, owning your digital output outright.
Section 3, the EGPL poison pill.
So how do we structurally protect our code from these giant monopolies at the actual protocol layer? How do we build that unbreakable chain of title without needing a 14-year lawsuit? Enter the Ethereum General Public License, or EGPL. It acts as a ruthless copyleft poison pill, and it works in 3 very deliberate deterministic steps. First, a massive corporate AI secretly scrapes your open source code to mine data without your permission. Second, that exact automated network interaction instantly triggers an EGPL license breach. And third, as a direct legal result, that closed AI system is legally forced to open source its own proprietary crown jewels in return. Multi-billion-dollar companies are terrified of this. It's a legal infection they simply will not touch, which creates an automatic, deterministic firewall around your work.
This creates a really beautiful balance for the entire internet. As the inventor of this protective shell noted, the primary goal is author opt-in for revenue, consumer zero cost. It perfectly protects the genuine human effort, the actual sweat of your brow, while keeping the digital commons entirely free and open for everyday users, students, and solo builders to learn from and modify. It nurtures growth for everyone, just like a well-tended vineyard, while ruthlessly protecting the farmer from corporate extractors.
Which brings us to Section 4, ERC 6969 Monetization Engine. Of course, having a strong defense is really only half the battle. The everyday creators orchestrating this magic actually need to get paid for their labor without relying on a broken patent office. And this is solved by Contract Secured Revenue, or CSR, using the ERC 6099 standard. Think of a CSR as a pristine digital deed, but it's not a piece of paper that can be tied up in court. It's unforgeable math that proves exactly who wrote the code. It legally secures human authorship and turns your code into a yield-bearing asset right at the base silicon layer. Think about the architectural shift happening here. In the old Web 2 model, centralized network sequencers acted like digital toll booths on a private highway. Every time data passed through, those centralized middlemen kept all the transaction fees for themselves, leaving the actual creators with pennies if they got anything at all. The ERC 6969 model elegantly reroutes those fees away from the toll booth operators and sends instant automated micro-royalties natively straight back to the human author. The math simply doesn't allow the middleman to steal your cut.
To really visualize this, think of it exactly like the music publishing royalty model. When you turn on your radio at home, the song is completely free for you to enjoy. But when massive commercial radio stations or stadiums broadcast that exact same work, automated back-end micro-royalties instantly kick in to pay the songwriter. It's the same thing with ERC 609069. Your open source code remains totally free for solo hobbyists. But the moment massive commercial AI factories plug your code into their high-value revenue engines, they're legally forced to pay automated royalties without you ever having to hire a single lawyer to chase them down.
And finally, Section 5, Reclaiming True Digital Sovereignty.
Bringing this whole narrative full circle, we can finally see exactly how this microscopic determinism secures our macro-digital legacy, moving us far, far beyond the billionaire's speculative casino. By combining the EGPL defensive shield with the ERC 6969 monetization engine, we basically invent what are called permissionless patents. Think back to Zaxcom for a second. Instead of suffering through 14 years of brutal court battles, bleeding legal fees, and relying on state-granted legal authority, compensation is now hard-coded into the protocol. It relies on undeniable mathematical evidence that automatically executes your royalties, totally cutting out the agonizing legal bureaucracy.
So, knowing that this deterministic vineyard exists right now to actively protect your authorship, I'm going to leave you with a final architectural ultimatum to chew on. As these massive centralized systems attempt to enclose our digital reality and scrape our data, will you passively remain a tenant in the royalist cloud? Or will you secure your own hardware, claim the unalterable record of your sweat, and ride as the sovereign pilot of your own machine? The future of your digital freedom is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the architecture around you.